Right, now before we go on to the next step, so we've built the frame pretty much and put the landing skids on, ESC tray, we just insert the main shaft, just to make sure it goes in fairly smoothly. Didn't start with, it's a bit of a struggle here, but once you line up the right angle, it should slip in. Now we're struggling again, just to prove a point. Okay, there's a little notchy point at the start, then it slides through the next bearing, finally down into the bottom one. That's where it sits at the bottom. So just to check before you do all the nuts up and maybe Loctite them as well. Right, we've done the build of the servos now, so it's just a question of putting the ball joints in and the crank arms. So channel 1 servo at the back there, the body outside the body of the helicopter, and the arm going inside, and you can see that, yeah, the ball faces in that way with the arm facing backwards. Channel 2 servo with the body inside the frame and the arm going forward, the ball link pointing in. Channel 3 is the mirror image of channel 2, channel 3 servo. The other thing worth noting, just as a reminder, the ball joints go in the second hole here. There's 2 holes here, one on the outside and another one inside, so it goes in the closer to the sort of centre point there, those. And we actually Loctited those on with blue Loctite because yeah, that seems to be recommended. You don't need to want what's there on that set. So that's those servos, and then the tail servo we put into its mounting bracket. There's 2 self-tapping screws that hold it in the bracket. Now we had problems with those. We were trying to use the 1.5mm hex screwdriver. Just see the screws down there, and it recommends in the manual to use hex screwdrivers either 1.3, 1.5, 2, 2.5 or 3mm, and the 2 was too big, the 2mm one, but the 1.5 seemed to be rounding the head off. We were a bit perplexed with that, so we eventually dug out our hex that we just bought, which had all the metric ones we wanted, looked at the imperial ones, get the right one, and a 1/16 of an inch imperial size fitted absolutely perfectly. So yeah, problem solved. We had some other hex screws that we had problems with. Just show you quickly as well. On the head, this screw in here, we went back to it, and again, perfect fit now with a 1/16 of an inch. We were trying to use the 1.5mm again on that screw. And finally, for completeness, the other one we struggled with were these ball links, and again the 1/16 fits those perfectly. So all is forgiven a line T-Rex, as in we thought the screws you'd given us were rubbish, but it's the fitting of the correct hex key, although it wasn't very clear in the manuals to us that you're meant to use a 1/16. So there's a big tip for people. Right, the next thing we've done is we wanted to check these arms on the servos were pretty well where they needed to be before we actually screwed them onto the body, especially these ones that go inside the body with the arms, that channel 1 servo and the rear tail servo. Before we did that, we had to bind the setup we've got. We won't go into the detail of that here, but we'll put a pointer of where a really good video is for that. To do that binding process, you'll need to insert the bind plug in the end socket there as well. But for the purpose of what we wanted to do to check these arms, it's a question of we'll just hook up with the transmitter here. We're using a Devo 7E here with Devention software on. It's a bit convoluted, but that's the setup we use, and again we won't go into the detail of that here. But turn that on, power up the ESC through to the micro beast. You'll see it initialising now. I'll lay that flat in the orientation it's going to be while it binds. And you get the blue light on the micro beast plus, and then the other lights go out. Yeah, you can hear, you might be able to hear the servos whirring about there. So yeah, those looked level. We did adjust those. The back ones, as close as we could get it to level. We'll do the final adjustment of that once we do the final setup. And the tail one, yeah, close enough to where that needs to be as well. We've screwed on the 3 cyclic servos now. And just to show you the wiring, we've run it out the side here, on this side, the right hand side, so you're facing forward with the helicopter, and put it back in through this hole. On the other side, there's 2 servos, and that hole's too small to take each of these connectors through when the wire's through. So again, we've run the front servo here, in through that hole, out through the side and in, back in through that hole, and then the channel 1 servo we've put in through that same hole. But to do that, we had to actually take the wires off, as you can see here. It just has a little tab there. You just very carefully push that down and the wires come out quite easily. And then once you've got the wires through individually, you can just push those back in place again. White, red, and black, like so. They're all secure, yeah. And then they can just run down either side, and we'll have the micro beast down in here, and the cables will go back into the micro beast there. I'm going to put the tail boom mount in next, which slides in there. Now to get it in, you need to take these screws out to make life a little bit easier. So we've loosened them off already. And these are for the tensioners on the belt pulley, which you can see down through there. But before we install it, we'll show you what we think is a good idea, because once you take those out, there are springs in there for those belt pulleys which push it in, and then you can't get the screw onto it where it needs to lock to. So a little tip, we'll do this once it's actually in situ, but is once it's in place in there, we'll show you what here, push something in, separate those out. We've used a pencil here, oops, this pushes the whole mechanism apart. If you don't watch it, so you need to keep some tension on it, which will be there once you've screwed it in. But then, just to show you, you'll be able to put those screws in place. They'll actually pull the springs, yeah, to one side. You can see down the hole, the one on the right hand side there now, it's moved out. Then do the same thing the other side. So again, yeah, it's not connecting, so just need to do that pencil trick again to separate them out. Seems to be the best way to hold it. Push in with the palm of your hand and then push there, and then you've got some purchase with that screw. Yeah, feel that bit more tension there now. It pulls it out. Okay, so that's what you've got to do when it's actually, oops, put it up the right way to show you, when it's actually in situ. Okay, so now we've got the tail boom mount in place there. Just slot it in, and for the moment there's sort of 8 screws on it, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the other side, just very loosely in place in readiness for the boom to be put in there before we clamp it together. As you can see, we've got those adjusting screws on the side in there. So those rollers are they're ready to put the belt through them. We're going to be putting in the main gear next, but in readiness to do that, we need to put in the tail drive belt. Now, to make life a bit easier for ourselves, we tighten these fully up. These are the springs that pull those rollers apart in there, so there's a nice wide gap in there, and then you can more easily feed through this belt. Just push that through. Yeah, you can sort of locate it onto those rollers later. Then what we're going to be doing once that's through is putting that around there, put that through a little bit, and then locating that in place, and putting down the main shaft. We'll do that in a moment. We've just put the main gear in place and finished tightening the collar there underneath. We did a test run first and check for any play, any give there, all there as well, before we Loctited that screw up in that small collar there. It was worth doing because there was a little bit of play, so we just slid up. You get a number of washers with it, 3, so we've got 2 left. We just used the smallest washer, and what you do is with the main shaft up, slide it up under the main shaft to just take out that play, and just that one little washer has sorted it out, and it feels rock solid now. There's no play we can feel in there or in there now. That's spinning freely, and we just put a tiny bit of Loctite on the end of that screw so that it's good and secure on there.